Hello, everyone, and welcome to our afternoon keynote. We are always super excited when Scarlett visits us and does a session because they're always amazing and everyone always leaves the session with something so much more than what they came with. So Scarlett, thank you so much for being here with us today. Okay, so I have the opportunity to actually tell you about Scarlett, and she is someone that you are just going to find captivating as she speaks. She founded the nonprofit Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement after her son was murdered during the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting in December 2012. After his death, Scarlett became part of the solution to the issues that we're seeing in our society and that also caused the tragedy. She created the movement and became an advocate for social and emotional learning and character development that teaches children how to manage their emotions, feel connected, and have healthy relationships. Speaking across the US and internationally to diverse audiences, Scarlett urges everyone to become part of the solution. Scarlett created the Choose Love for Schools program at a no-cost, comprehensive, lifespan, next generation SEL and character development program that teaches children and adults how to thoughtfully respond to love in any situation, handle adversity, and have a courageous conversation by using the Choose Love formula, which is courage, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion in action, and equals choosing love. And Scarlett, again, I am always honored to have you here because your presentations are amazing. So again, today, I know it's going to be, so thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor. I appreciate speaking with your group every time, and there's so much to say. So let's get into it. For those of you who have heard me before, thanks for sticking in there with us. I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary of my story because it's really important. It's why I'm doing this work. I started 8 years ago following the murder of my 6-year-old son, Jesse McCord Lewis, in his first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And I knew as a parent that what happened on that day was 100% preventable. And so I set about to figure out how to do that. And Jesse's message that he left on our kitchen chalkboard really helped me in that process. He wrote 3 words shortly before he died: nurturing, healing, love. And I knew immediately that if the shooter, who was a former student whose mother had taught at the school, had been able to give and receive nurturing, healing love, that the tragedy would never have happened. It was so simple. Simple isn't always easy. And so I set about creating a solution, as Tisha said, and I'm going to be talking about that today and sharing a little bit of my story, but also more about what I've learned, because we learn through difficulty and challenges in our lives. In fact, it's kind of why we're here, to be present, to learn from, grow through, and then be strengthened by the things that we face in life. And so all of this learning is woven into the Choose Love movement and what we teach in our lifespan programming. But I'm going to go through this and give a few personal examples, because as you can imagine, we are shaped and molded through our experiences. And so I have done a lot of growing in the last 8 years, and I want to share that with you all. Here's this message, up close: nurturing, healing, love. Those 3 words, which are in the definition of compassion across all cultures, as researched by doctoral professors looking at this message, trying to figure out where it came from. And those 3 words translated are a powerful and profound formula for choosing love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction. This formula can help you to thoughtfully respond by choosing love. And that's when we are in our power. Our locus of control is inside of us. We make things happen instead of being victimized and feeling like things are just happening to us, which leads us, unfortunately, to hopelessness. And there is a lot of that in our society. And, one of the main things that I learned is that we are teaching in every moment. We're teaching our kids in every moment. In every situation, everything that we do, and not just words that come out of our mouth, because our communication is only 40% verbal. The rest is facial expression, which is why masking is so difficult for kids, because a lot of our face is hidden. And a lot of our expression is our communication, and our displeasure to our love is shown on our faces, but also, in our gesticulation, and even our energy is communication. So every moment we are communicating, and we are teaching our kids, and they are watching us. And I think that that's one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned in my experience, is that I just didn't realize, and I'm a mom, I had 2 kids. I was a single mom. I worked a lot, and I did try to be present, but I don't think that I was aware of the fact that every single moment, every time I was on the phone and the kids were in the room, driving in the car, what we were listening to, every moment is an opportunity for learning, and you are shaping and molding those little brains. And it is so important to be mindfully aware for your own kids, but also for those little kids in the classroom. They're learning from how you are reacting and responding to different things. How you come into the classroom in the morning. You may have had a difficult morning driving in, and you are giving off that energy to kids, and kids are learning how to thoughtfully respond. I'll give you a specific story. For me, it was December 14th, 2012. That was the day of the shooting. And my older son, who was 12 years old at the time, he was in lockdown in his 7th grade classroom. And he texted me and asked me if he could come wait with me at the firehouse, because they were telling us that they were still looking for the students. And so I said, sure, because nothing like that ever happens to people like you and I. So he came and he waited, and there was so much going on, as you can imagine, chaos. And by the way, that we're going to talk about trauma in a minute. But that wasn't the first trauma that we had ever experienced in our lives. And, but it was one of the biggest for sure. And so there was a lot of chaos. We were getting little bits of information, obviously not promising. And, JT was watching me, and I was realizing I was trying to be present in the moment. So vitally important to be able to appreciate what's going on, to be able to learn and grow through from our difficulty. You have to be present in the moment. The majority of our time we're not. And I practice being present in my life. So, I was practicing even then, because I want to be in my own personal power. I wanted to be able, to thoughtfully respond to what was going on around me. And so I realized that JT, who was 12 years old at the time, was watching my every move, even in that tough, difficult situation. He was examining my facial expression. He may not have heard all my words, but he was watching my gesticulation. He was sensing my energy. And I realized I was teaching him in the moment how to handle difficulty, roadblocks, challenges, stress, even pain and suffering, tragedy, going forward for the rest of his life. I mean, this is what we're doing in the moment, every day, all day long. I just want to start with that. It's so important. But that understanding, just that awareness, helps us to rise to the occasion, to be the best version of ourselves in every moment. Obviously, we're not going to be on 100% of the time, but we do have to be aware when we're around our children, our students, that we are teaching them in every moment. Every moment is an opportunity to learn. And this formula is literally how I live my life. I practice it every day, all day long. I have spread this formula all over the world, schools in every state in the country, over 10,000 schools, 112 countries. I have visited schools in different countries. I have visited prisons in different countries. And in America, and I've spoken with at-risk youth. I'm telling you this because no one has ever raised their hand and said, thought of a situation where this formula would not lead you to thoughtfully responding with love. And it comes directly from the message, for those of you who haven't heard me before: nurturing, healing, love, courage. Comes from Jesse's example of courage. Jesse stood up to the shooter and saved 9 of his classmates before losing his life. And the amazing thing is, we all have the capacity for that courage. Science tells us that courage is like a muscle. We need to practice it to strengthen it. And we use courage every day in our lives. The courage to be present in difficult times, the courage to do the right thing, the courage to tell the truth, the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to face our fear instead of resist and avoid and not. And then nurturing, in Jesse's message of nurturing, healing, love, means loving kindness and gratitude. And gratitude is so vitally important. We're going to take these apart towards the end of the presentation, but gratitude is so important. You all have heard me speak of this before. It shifts the focus of your lens. So the majority of our thoughts that we think every single day are negative and repetitive. Between 70 to 80% of our thoughts are negative, and over 95% are repetitive. So, but the amazing thing is, we can only think one thought at a time. That means that we can only think a lower energy, resentful, critical, fearful thought, or a grateful thought. Only one thought at a time. Amazing, right? So that means that we can choose a grateful thought, and that can shift us out of that lower energy type of thinking. And then that neuroscientifically strengthens us to consider forgiveness. Forgiveness is the way to take your personal power back in any situation. It is not, I mean, it can be a gift that you give the other person, but in reality, when you look at the decades of research on forgiveness, it's a gift that you give yourself. It's a way of taking your personal power back. You look at me, I'm a mom who had a 6-year-old son murdered in his first grade classroom. And I was not going to give the murderer, this young man who was so in so much pain, obviously, and suffered from mental illness, I was not going to give him power over my thoughts that would impact how I felt, that would impact how I showed up in my relationships. Absolutely not. But the only way for me to take my personal power back was to forgive, cut that cord that attached me to pain. And so important. There are decades of research behind the benefits of forgiving for the forgiver. And then that healing literally means forgiveness. And then love is compassion in action. It is having the courage to step outside of everything that you have going on in your life, even your own pain and suffering, to help someone else. And when you've done that, you've chosen love. And the amazing thing is that love is what connects us all as human beings. We're all the same, regardless of age. in the want and need to love and be loved. You know, I talk with kids a lot in schools, all ages. And I often say, I hear myself, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying. And I say, you know, this is just as true for you. Because really, we are just big kids. We're human beings as well that want and need love. We struggle with relationships. We have struggles that go on in our lives, and we're just trying to put our best foot forward. And that takes courage. And really, it all boils down to loving and being loved. Love is connection and belonging. And that is what we all need to be healthy in all ways. So we know a lot, but there's a lot that we don't know. But when you want to focus on what we know, we know that all human beings need connection, and connection is love and belonging, as opposed to just fitting in. We need a sense of belonging. We want to be our authentic selves that are accepted so that we feel that belonging. We don't want to change who we are to have to fit in. We also know that we need to have some amount of resilience, and we're going to talk about how to build resilience in a little bit. We need to learn resilience in order to overcome obstacles. Now, if your life has been perfect up until now, oh, I'm so happy for you. That's awesome. And some kids have led really good lives up until that point, but we know, even for our own kids. And of course, I would love to just walk in front of JT the rest of his life with a lawnmower and weed whacker. And I would like to just give him the smoothest path possible. But I know that he needs to learn resilience, because he's going to face difficulty. He's going to have to get back up and continue. And here's the bottom line. If we want to make everything that we're talking about today just really simple, we all just want to feel good. Isn't that the truth? And literally everything that we do all day long is moving us towards feeling good. And we're only going to do that in one of two ways. We're going to do that through anger, okay? Because things happen. And when we get anger, when we feel anger, when we're angry, when there's a situation that happens and there's a conflict and we're angry, it gives us a false sense of control. We feel powerful. And, but we know that, and anger in itself is fine. It's valid. It's good. It's helpful. But prolonged anger is as bad as smoking 2 packs. And I'm sorry, it's half a pack, I think, of cigarettes a day. It's bad for us, prolonged anger. We try, not just kids, but adults too. We try to feel better through bullying. And it's not just kids. This is where when I talk about bullying to kids, I think, oh, us big kids do it too. We try to feel good through bullying. And that's just trying to off-put our pain onto somebody else. Drugs. Oh my gosh. I'm going to talk about substance abuse in a little bit, but our substance abuse is skyrocketing off the charts, higher than ever before in the history of mankind. Why? Why are we gravitating towards drugs? It's to feel better. It's to reduce our pain. It's to numb ourselves because we don't know how to do it in a positive way. Why do we join gangs or even terrorist organizations? It's to belong. It's to find love. It's for security and safety. It's for many different reasons, or to feel good. We can do that through having positive relationships, meaningful connections, being emotionally intelligent, being able to manage our emotions, being resilient, being able to face difficulty and get back up. And we do this by making choices in our lives, choosing love over fear. And we just want everybody to have a choice. We just want everybody to have this understanding and know that they have a choice, because when you have a choice, the majority of us are going to choose love. I want to talk about Blake for just a moment, just to give a little shout out. It was only a few weeks ago that I was with one of my best friends in Georgia, and sitting by the side of her son hooked up to life support in ICU. He had just overdosed, and he was 31 years old. He had struggled with substance abuse for 20 of those years. And it was absolutely devastating. Absolutely devastating. Blake was such a beautiful person, such an incredible person, and he wanted to do the right thing, and he wanted to be free of his substance abuse. But he had things that happened to him, very painful things that happened to him in his life. And he did not have the coping skills that he needed to get through those problematic times. And while I was there, interestingly enough, there were articles that came out that said that overdoses are up 30% last year, the highest ever in the history of mankind. And we know that the opposite of addiction is connection, and connection is love. And we can teach people to choose love, and that's what I'm trying to do. So we can't always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose how we thoughtfully respond. Isn't that the truth? And that's actually called, there's a name for that. It's called responsive intelligence. It's how we are able to choose and then manage our response to what happens in our lives. And we take our personal power back through our thoughtful response, because we can't always choose what happens to us. I would never have chosen to have my 6-year-old son murdered, but I could take my personal power back in how I chose to respond. Creating your own path and you're making the world a better place. Focus on what we can control. Am I still on?
You were going out pretty bad.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. My screen changed. I think that I am still on.
You
Yes.
are, Scarlett. I just shut your video off. It helps with us to be able to hear you better just for a minute so we can work through this tech.
Okay. Sorry about this, you all.
You sound great though.
Okay, good,
There we go.
good. So this is how we take our personal power back, even amidst COVID-19 and the new Delta variant. It works through the virus as well. Because we've all heard of survival of the fittest, right? But guess what? That, which is attributed to famous evolutionist Charles Darwin, is not actually what he concluded in his research. He actually never said survival of the fittest. Charles Darwin actually said that it would be survival of the most sympathetic to one another that would survive and thrive. And by sympathetic, he meant altruistic, generous, and compassionate. Doesn't that make more sense? So we're not out there elbowing each other to get to the top. Instead, we're actually lending a hand and helping everybody up. That's how we rise together. And that's what Choose Love in my message is based on. But in reality, Up until now, we've really just put a Band-Aid on all of our issues that we in our world. And I'm talking about substance abuse now. I'm talking about bullying, which is considered by state and federal governments, and all the anti-bullying stuff that we've done out there. It continues to increase. We have mental illness. Mental illness is increasing exponentially, and that includes anxiety. We're going to talk about anxiety in a minute, but what we've been doing is focusing on the illness itself. We think in hindsight, really, we focus on issues. We're not really that proactive. It's actually not how we're wired to think. So what we do is we focus on the problem, and we've been putting Band-Aids on the problem. And what I'm talking about today, and I love that I'm talking to early childhood educators, because that's where we start early on. The earlier, the better, to build this resilience and this understanding. And it's not difficult. It's not rocket science. But we have to start doing it, and we do it through our actions. That's the easiest way to do it. And then teaching in the classrooms. That's why we start all of our programming with the self, because we have to learn to love and accept ourselves before we can do that for others. And there's so many great things that are out there that are proactive, preventative. They also address the issues once they come out. But we can start really, really young. The younger, the better. And to teach social and emotional learning, character education, positive psychology, neuroscience. There are things that we can do with little kids' brains to help them develop mindfulness, growth mindset, all on a base of post-traumatic growth and resilience. And being trauma informed is so important right now, because there's so much trauma. And this is proliferate. It's all over the country. And I don't know about you, but I'm so grateful, because, everybody talks about getting back to normal. Gosh, I can't wait. We're in a state of grief, all of us. And I've heard that, and I believe it. We're grieving. It's not just grieving the loss of a significant other, but we're grieving the loss of what we knew, the loss of expectations, the loss of things that should have happened that didn't, that we missed out on because of COVID. But I don't want to go back to normal. I don't know about you. I want to create the world that I want to live in. And I want that world to be founded in love, and people who have the ability to thoughtfully respond with love in any situation, circumstance, or interaction they're faced with. I just want to share this clip because it's really fun. Tim Shriver, who is the founder of CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They're responsible for almost all of the research behind social and emotional learning. He was at an event in China recently, and he took this little short video and he sent it to me. This is how we're all connected. It's amazing.
Video. Yeah, video. So you guys run international schools, right? We're here to support inclusion. Do you do any social and emotional learning? Yes, we have a program called Choose Love. Choose what? Choose love. You do the choose love? You're kidding. In China. Yes. Oh my God. Scarlett, you're going to love this.
That's Tim Shriver. He was the president of Special Olympics for a long time. And it's because, we're all just human beings. And we're all the same in the want and need to love and be loved, regardless of where we are, where we live, what we're going through. But let's talk about trauma for a moment, because trauma has increased so much since we started really looking at it and researching it. through the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences, that was groundbreaking research in childhood trauma 25 years ago, that actually found the more adverse childhood experiences that kids have, sometimes, unfortunately, the worse off their lives are. They have disrupted neurodevelopment, social and emotional impairment. They engage in risky behaviors, and sometimes it even leads to early death. They found that it was one in five students had some form of trauma, at least one ACEs 25 years ago. And then going into the pandemic, it was between 35 and 50% of kids coming into the classroom having experienced at least one traumatic event. Now, they're saying between 90 and just assuming 100% of kids have some amount of trauma. So it's not something that we can take lightly. We have to think about that. And a lot of it comes from home. That's the bottom line. So we really need to get parents informed in this. Remember, it was a different world when we were growing up, for sure. But we didn't have all the research that we do now either. Well, I guess it depends on how old you are, but anyway, it really helps to realize, to understand how our brain processes trauma. So our brain is there to keep us alive. It was interesting, even with Blake, who had overdosed. He was on life support, yes, but his brain was functioning only to the point where it was taking care of just the necessary bodily functions, but the majority of it was just dead. But it was still enough to barely keep him alive. It's so interesting. So we have this trauma filter. Our brain wants to keep us alive, and that means keeping us safe. That's the number one function of our brain. So everything that happens is kind of logged into our brain, and it goes through really a trauma filter. Now, this is from Dr. Bruce Perry's work. So we have, I have my fingers interlaced and they're kind of at my throat, because everything that happens to us goes through this trauma filter, and our brain is asking like, oh, have I seen this before? Is this safe? Do I need to do something? And we have a special propensity for remembering difficult things over good things. And I'm sure that you can think about that in your own life. So this is how our brain really kind of helps keep us safe. So in other words, safety is number one. And when you're thinking about dealing with kids when they're coming into school, remember, safety is number one. So regulating the kids, doing some sort of calming exercise or mindfulness exercise when they come in is necessary for regulation. Then the information flows up into the emotional center. Then you can relate with them. You can't relate with them before you regulate them. And then the information flows into the logic and reasoning center. Then you connect with them. That is how the processing has to go through the day. And it's really important that we realize that so that our days can go smoothly. I guarantee no kid ever wakes up and says, oh, I can't wait to get to school. I'm going to be the worst kid in the classroom. My teacher's going to be so upset. I hope I get sent to the principal's office and bawled out and all of that. No, of course they don't. They absolutely don't. But they can come in dysregulated, anxious, and it's our job as the adult in the room to help them regulate. And there are many different ways that we can do that. But empathizing and listening and reassuring are really big ways to do that. and then sharing and collaborating. Asking, and this is of course from Dr. Bruce Perry's new book, What Happened to You? That's literally the title. And he is trying to change our dialogue from what's wrong with you, right? I mean, because that's when somebody's acting up, child or adult, really, our first thing when we see them misbehaving or what we consider misbehaving is like, what's wrong with you? But really, really, what we should be asking is, what happened to you? What happened to you? Remember, behavior is communication. Really important. When kids are traumatized, it's like they're swimming in shark-infested waters. And kids feel that it's safer in some instances to be feared than fearful. It's better to be on the attack than to be attacked. Sometimes anger acts as a bodyguard to fear and sadness. So they're putting up this mask, and we need to just be aware of that. Really, really important. Trauma is like wearing a mask. I thought I might just since we're all talking about masks and masks are front and center in the debate on whether we should wear a mask or not. Trauma is like wearing a mask when we're traumatized, because our behavior, notice I say our, little kids, big kids, can be angry, hard, uncaring, bullying, scary, almost monster-like. But really the person behind the mask or behind the behavior, what they're really feeling is small, scared, hurt, invisible, fragile, alone. Because I guarantee you, if we had a choice, we would want to be connecting with everyone, loving, being loved, happy. Of course, it's just lack of skills that keeps us from that. So thinking, understanding in this way can change the way that you thoughtfully respond to children, because attention-seeking behavior really, really is attention-needing behavior. Not to see it as manipulative, but just trying to get needs met. It's so interesting. I can't help saying this, but I keep making this point, but it's little kids and it's big kids. So try to attempt to see the human behind the behavior. Yeah, and I had said this before. This slide should have been right after Blake's slide, but you know, I was at a whole convention on substance abuse, and this FBI director of drug enforcement got up and literally said the opposite of addiction is connection, and connection is love. Here's the thing. We are not born with the ability to connect with one another. Yes, it's natural. Yes, we want to connect, but we learn connection. We learn relationship skills from our parents. Now, if our parents don't have that understanding or the ability, or they don't know how to do it, they can't teach the children. So that's where educators really have to step up. And we're seeing this more and more, that we are the ones that are teaching and or reinforcing what parents are teaching, because there has to be a consistent message. This is kind of what this is interesting. This is just a little video of what Choose Love looks like with kids. Oh, wait, sorry.
The Choose Love program that we did in the 5th and 6th grade, I thought helped like all of us like together to become better friends with each other. Because I thought we actually really didn't like each other at the beginning of the year, but like now I feel like we're getting to be like better friends.
All right, so what it did was some kids would hang out with the same kids and they wouldn't really interact. Now, after we had that here, everyone became friends. They all talked to each other, and like it's still happening to this day. Everyone's friends with each other, even in class and even outside of school.
I showed that because you could hear a little bit about what school's like, right? I mean, you have groups of people that like each other that get into groups, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's interesting because I want to share a little personal story about what I learned, another lesson. JT, who was 12 years old when his little brother was murdered, he would come home from school and he would say, Mom, no one cares about me. And I would say, oh my gosh, JT, they do. I mean, I don't understand how you can say that, because all your teachers are getting together all the time. They're giving you special accommodations. You get more time on tests. They give you a room where you can go when you want to, when you need to get away from everything. And, to me, it looks like they care a lot. And he couldn't convince him. I couldn't convince him. He for years, because he went back to school. That was his second half of 7th grade, all the way until 12th grade. In fact, he was so miserable, he graduated early because he felt like nobody cared about him. And I couldn't convince him otherwise. And I was talking to now somebody who's a friend of mine, the president of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the founder of grief therapy. And I was telling her about this issue, like, the teachers can't convince them. I can't convince them that they care. And she said, I know why he thinks that. I said, why? I've struggled with this for years. She said, no one's had the courage to validate his grief. Now, I say this to you because I think it's what a lot of us do. And I say us because I do it too. I mean, when I asked the educators, then I realized no one had ever said Jesse's name. No one had talked about the event, and no one had asked JT how he was doing. That question, and by the way, that question is like, hey, how you doing? If I asked you that, you would say, fine, right? And that's really kind of more like a natural, like, hey, hello. And you wouldn't think that I really cared, right? But if I asked you again, hey, no, how are you doing? And maybe I put a hand on your shoulder and I looked into your eyes, then you would look back and you would think, okay, she actually really does care and she really wants to know. Then it's on you. She must have calculated in some time in case I say I'm not okay. Right. But the bottom line is she cares, and I don't feel like going into it now, but I appreciate that. The thing is, nobody had ever asked JT, how are you doing? Because they were afraid he would say he wasn't okay, and that they wouldn't have the professional skills and tools that they needed, or that they might remind him. And so that was really, I understand why that happened, but really we need to spread awareness that it takes courage to be present with somebody who is in pain or might be in pain. And really, it's not at all about having professional skills and tools and the ability to take care of it and to fix things, right? It's really about being present with people in the moment, especially in pain. And so I learned from that, it is really important to ask, how are you doing? And I know that it's kind of a reciprocal question, but ask it twice, really important. I know that, physical distancing is a big thing, but put your hand on a shoulder, do touch. We need touch, actually, as human beings. We are wired to appreciate touch. We're wired for connection. We are wired to look into one another's eyes, and we are really missing that now. So when someone's having a hard time, sit next to them, put your hand on their shoulder or their head or their knee, and ask a couple of times. And knowing that someone cares about you can make all the difference in someone's life. Thinking that no one cares about you is really painful. I know, I've seen it. So here's the thing. I talked about how we process trauma, and kids are going to come back to school after a summer off, and they need to get reconnected. They need to be brought back to baseline. They're going to have experienced difficulty and fun, but the bottom line is they need to be brought back to baseline. So we have a great program for that. It's called Choosing Love in Our Brave New World. It's a special back to school unit. It's pre-K through 12th grade. And it's between 4 to 6 lessons specifically designed. They're trauma informed to help kids regulate and to bring them back to baseline. If we now understand how our brain translates trauma, so getting that regulation so that they can relate, and so that we can reach up to their logic and reasoning part of their brain too. I just want to share some of our resources because they are no cost. And I want to make sure that you all have them and are aware of them. Daily Dose of Love, which is our daily email on how people are choosing love in schools, homes, and communities. Would love to see you highlighted there. Our podcast. Give me an idea of another podcast, or come on it yourself. Join our book club. We have incredible life transforming, changing books. We come together at the end of I think it's the last Wednesday of every month with the author, and just amazing. We have a month-long connecting celebration in February. Would love to see you on that, connecting with schools all over the world. Just check out our resources at chooselovemovement.org. We do have a prenatal program, and it's very simple. And it's a lot just awareness. And I wish, by the way, that I had this awareness. I wish that I had known when I was pregnant with my 2 boys that how I responded to my external environment was really important. And that I could choose how I responded, and that would influence my baby's forming brain. Because when we are stressed out, we release cortisol that crosses the blood-brain barrier, and our babies can actually be born with smaller prefrontal cortexes, because we're actually telling our babies, hey, you don't need to come out and start reading right away. You just need to come out and be prepared to run, because this is a really stressful environment. So we have a lot of just exercises that people can do to help them self-regulate. And then our infant toddler program is also no cost. And again, infant toddler, this is before pre-K, but as a single working mom, I handed my 6-week-old babies over to daycare providers, public and private. And I know that they loved the babies, right, as much as they could, but I know that also they weren't aware of the extreme importance of that time of brain development of young kids. And if they had been, I don't know, probably better outcomes. So let's talk about anxiety really quickly, because there's so much anxiety out there. I've been trying to ask, what's the bigger word than a pandemic? Because that's what anxiety is. Whatever's that step up from a pandemic, there's so much anxiety out there. And I think it's really important that we understand that there's a difference between stress and anxiety. Stress is usually an external event over which we have little to no control. And then anxiety is how we respond to that stress. So we do have control over the anxiety part. And by the way, we need some stress. We need predictable, controllable, moderate stress to grow our resilience. But stress that is unpredictable, severe, uncontrollable leads to weakness and vulnerability in us. But does the perception that stress affects our health matter? Does what we think about stress and how it impacts our health matter? This is so amazing. I love positive psychology research. And by the way, it's not a new thing. It's been around for 100 years. But there's an amazing study that had tens of thousands of participants, and they asked them about their stress level and if they thought that stress was bad for them. So those who reported a lot of stress and just thought that stress impacted their health in a negative way had a 43% increased risk of premature death. Wow. But here's the difference. Those who reported a lot of stress and said that they didn't think that stress negatively impacted their health had no more risk of premature death than those that said they weren't stressed at all. What? So our thought about stress impacts the outcome, just our thoughts. Is that incredible? Our thoughts are so powerful. In fact, every thought that we think leads us towards languishing or flourishing. Every thought we think impacts us on a cellular level, every single cell in our body. We need to be really mindful of every thought that goes through our head. We start doing that by being present. But how we think definitely impacts our biology. So when we are stressed, when we're reacting to that stressful environment, releasing cortisol, we know that cortisol causes inflammation. Inflammation in our bodies can lead to heart attack and even death, and all of these negative consequences on the left side of the slide. But did you know that the anxiety, the stress response also releases oxytocin called the love hormone? Oxytocin that makes us want to reach out and ask for help. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Our bodies are so amazing. And guess what else oxytocin does? It reduces inflammation. So it literally negates the negative impact of cortisol. So when you must be thinking, well, wait a minute, then what is stress? Stress is our body's way of rising to the challenge. That's all it is. It's just preparing us for whatever's ahead. So next time when you hear yourself saying, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, appreciate that. Think, oh, wow, my body, it's so incredible. It's rising to the challenge. It's doing everything that I need it to do to face whatever I need to face. Hey, your body has gotten you to here through everything that you've been through. Take a moment right now just to thank it. Thank you, body. Wow, you're amazing. You're incredible. Thank you for being everything that I've needed you to be and getting me to this moment. So we need to focus on solutions. We need to focus on, and that's what we're doing today. We've got lots of different self-care for leaders. By the way, leaders, educators, you need to practice self-care. We need to. I love educators so much. You all are our modern day superheroes. You know, you've heard me say that before, but it is really important that you take care of yourself. And we have to remember that. I mean, we know stewardesses or flight attendants, say, put on your mask first. And you do that so that you have the oxygen enough and you can put on the child's mask. And so you need to do that for yourself. We need to practice self-care. It is so vitally important. In fact, my mom just told me that this morning. And that's why I'm up in Maine. And I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm practicing self-care too. This is my favorite place to be. And I encourage you, part of self-care is connecting with others and asking for help. And Choose Love actually has a connect area where educators connect from all over the world and they share. It's almost like a Facebook for Choose Love. And so I encourage you guys to go on and check that out. Downloading Choose Love is so easy. You go to Choose Love Movement, you register, and you have full access to everything that we have. You're not going to get through it in one day, but just start because it's pretty amazing. We've got incredible partners. Also incredible resources, and hanging these words on the wall really makes a difference, and saying them. This can go in anywhere, this programming. So we're in prisons, actually, we're in foster care, we're part of training for first responders. We're obviously in daycares, pediatricians, and bus drivers, businesses, all sorts of people can choose love. But let's talk about trauma for a minute, because trauma is really important right now to discuss. Obviously, I experienced trauma. I still do, by the way. I still have PTSD, some amount of it. And the good thing about being from Sandy Hook is that we had every kind of trauma treatment. People from different countries come and offer their trauma treatments that I'd never heard of for free, which is really amazing. I've tried them all, and I narrowed it down to a few that I felt were really, really effective. And I want to introduce one to you right now, because this is actually a newer trauma treatment, which is so incredible. That little picture of that guy in hospital clothes right in the middle there, that's Justin Bieber. So Justin Bieber havens, this is what it's called, a safe haven. That's where that term comes from, havening. It's actually a growth from emotional freedom technique and tapping. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this approach helps to create a haven for yourself. And it's super, super, super good for little kids because it's so easy to do. It's light, deliberate touch, which changes the pathway in the brain associated with emotional distress. Touch, remember I was talking about the importance of compassionate touch, produces serotonin in the brain that helps you relax and detach from a disturbing memory or experience. Serotonin has a soothing effect that helps relieve mental health symptoms and keeps painful memories from troubling you. So when you think about what havening looks like, I'm going to go back to that. Havening touch, which is what it's called, is, when you think about somebody that is really upset, what do? They put their face in their hands, or they may wring their hands, or they may cross their hands over their chest in a defensive mode. Well, that's what havening touch looks like. It is called washing the face, washing the hands, or giving yourself a hug. So you literally take your fingers and you brush them across your forehead and down the side of your face, maybe also from your nose, underneath your eyes, and down the side of your face. You can rub your hands together. You see that in one of the pictures. You can also cross your hands over your chest and put one hand on one shoulder, one hand on the other, and then slide your hands down the outside of your arms, and then continue that. So continuously do that movement. This is so powerful. When you talk about kids coming into the classroom that are dysregulated, this helps kids regulate. And I love this because they can do this anywhere. It's called amygdala depotentiation. So it is psychosensory therapy used to address deep-rooted anxiety, rumination, and negative responses. It uses delta waves. So when you sleep, you produce delta waves. And this is the most healing time that your body has is during sleep. So these movements on the face, on the hands, washing the face, washing the hands, or giving yourself a hug, produce delta waves. And delta waves create a sense of peace and literally a sense of safety and haven. So havening is used for emotional distress in many types, phobias, painful memories, grief and sadness, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, fear, panic, cravings, even short or long-term chronic physical, mental, or emotional pain. The technique boosts general well-being and leads to improved performance at work, school, and physical activities. I just wanted to introduce it to you today because it is so powerful. And I I practice havening and it works. I wanted you to, and anybody who, I think that I sent these slides, but I will, anybody who wants these images, there are schools that are opening. In morning announcements, they ask the kids to haven. Not all do, by the way, and it's a choice, and that's fine because the kids that aren't havening get the benefit anyway. And they say this in the morning while the kids are havening: I open my heart to friendship. I open my mind to learning. I choose to feel peaceful, safe, and calm. Wow, what a great message to literally like encode into yourself. So we are actually looking for schools to be part of a havening study to agree to start out their day with havening and to do a few surveys. So let me know if you're interested. I also want to go into tapping. Now, havening for little kids is so good because it's so easy. Havening is actually an extension of tapping. Tapping, emotional freedom technique. There's so much research behind it. They use it in the military. I love it. I started with tapping right after the tragedy, and then I went all the way around to all of these different things. I tried everything that you could possibly imagine. And I came back to tapping because tapping and havening was so powerful. It helps with almost everything: physical, mental, and emotional pain. It's incredible. It reduces stress, lowers cortisol, improves sleep, reduces anxiety, relieves pain. You can walk kids through it. It makes them feel good. That's the bottom line. We started with that slide, feeling good. We all just want to feel good. Tapping and havening is a way to do that helps regulate the nervous system. That's something that we need to do before we can relate. And there's lots of science behind this. It actually shows a 43% decrease in cortisol levels. So there is scientific proof in this, which is pretty amazing. Tapping points, you can go on the internet and you can look for examples of tapping. But what I want, this is a gift to you from the Tapping Solution. We are partnered with the Tapping Solution, by the way. In every single lesson that we have, there is a tapping extension. Tapping has written Choose Love lessons specifically for us. But if you look at the top of this slide, there is a website, https, it's the tappingsolutionapp.com/responder.php. If you would take a picture of that, or I can send this, this is a free app, a tapping app for educators and first responders for 6 months. It's 6 months of free membership. And this is an amazing app. It has every single kind of scenario you can ever possibly imagine. And it literally walks you through tapping, and it will, I guarantee you, give you relief from anything that you're suffering from. And when you learn it, then you can teach it to the kids and do it with your classroom. It is incredible. So please, if you have a camera, take a screenshot of that website at the top in orange. All teachers and mental health care workers get this app for free for 6 months. It's incredible. You'll love it. So really important, however, that we work on the culture of our school. There's got to be a feeling of, obviously, first, safety, compassion, connection, especially love. And schools have done this by merging the Choose Love message with their logos, merging our mission statements. I wanted to share this slide because it's really cute. So, we've hired PR people and all of this. And this 4th grader in Hawaii, if you look at that logo front and centered to the lower part of the slide, this 4th grader creates this logo for his school, by the way. And you see in the middle, it's Choose Love. He figured out that in the middle of Choose Love is SEL. All these, of course, we don't hire high-priced PR people, but anyway, no adult ever figured this out that graduated with a degree in PR. It was a 4th grader. It's pretty awesome. School culture is so important. And this is what research tells us about school culture. Positive learning can only take place in a positive culture. A healthy school culture will affect more student and teacher success than any other reform or school improvement effort currently being employed. So important. And really, our results are incredible. I know I've gone through them before, so I'm not going to go through them again, but I told you there's so many other places that are choosing love. And this is a residential facility in New Hampshire, and you see the outcomes that they're having. And this is just by teaching Choose Love. And it is digested in different ways and with different abilities, but the physical aggressions are decreasing and the minutes of play are increasing. And that is really dramatic. In fact, so dramatic that they're extending that in more ways than one. So positivity broadens our perspective and view of the world, and anger and fear narrows it. And we have to be present in order to realize that. And it's such an important lesson that we learn, and we've got to get our parents involved, because a lot of the trauma that we get into the classroom, obviously the majority of it comes from the home. And actually, when I first started this, and I went to a convention on trauma, and I learned that the majority of trauma comes from home. Of course, we've had a lot of trauma in our home as well. I thought, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. I should have started with the parents, because I didn't know these skills and tools either, by the way. As a parent, I didn't learn them at home. I didn't learn them at school. So I got to be an adult that didn't have them. So we do have a free Choose Love program for the home. And so it's obviously optimal that parents are helping with this message and this learning, so everyone can be on the same page. Really important. Also, communities, getting communities involved is really, really important. Right now, there's so many siloed efforts. Think about it. You have so many nonprofits and different governmental agencies all trying to make the world a better place, but they're trying in their own way with their own efforts, and they're not really talking together. Choose Love is a common language that can help bring all of those efforts together, and it's so important.
Scarlett, can you hear me?
Ms. Lewis spoke to our faculty and teachers back in August.
I'll be there. I'll be signing books. Having games.
Awesome.
It's going to be great. We're going to be having a lot of fun.
Loving you always. I hope you will find me waiting in your heart always. Love is sacrifice in all ways.
Now, therefore, I, Stephanie Orman, Mayor of the City of Bentonville, do hereby proclaim November 9th, 2019, the Choose Love Day in the City of Bentonville, in the great state of Arkansas, in the United States of America.
And I want to
I think that we will just end it there. As far as the presentation goes, I'm going to start my video again, and just thank you all very much for joining me today and allowing me to present about Choose Love and about the challenges that we face. We are in a totally unique time in our history, but that can be a good thing, because we're out of our comfort zone, all of us, for the first time ever. I know in my life, everyone is out of their comfort zone. And when we're out of our comfort zone, we're in our growth zone. And we have the ability right now to create the world that we want to live in. And I don't know about you, but I would love to have a world where people choose love, and they thoughtfully respond with what's happening in our world with love. So I want to thank you all for listening to the message and choosing love as well.
Scarlett, that's amazing. I'm going to stop the recording really quick